Is it now? All right.
So yeah, Jacob's having computer and speaker issues, but he's been kind enough to join us. Nonetheless, we got Will, Franco, Will Son, God's Will I Am, Will Son the law of the will,
All right.
not the law of the will, the law of God's will.
Yeah, I mean, William Will I Am Law is what my dad named me, so I consider it a charge to first learn what God's law is and then be it.
Follow it out. Well, we have a few different topics that we talked about discussing here on our text thread that I think everyone will be excited about. And we'll try to bring a little fun and humor to it, as we seem to sometimes do. Uh, what are our topics again? The current polarization
That was one of them.
and how to be helpful there.
What's
And
what's the strategy to go to
yeah,
heaven?
what's the strategy to go to heaven? I have a lot to say about that.
Oh yeah.
And then are we all the one? That was Will just brought that one up before you got on, Jacob.
Like,
And is truth, God, love exclusive, judgmental, or conditional in her being? That was a will question. If so, how?
I that kind of came up talking about what is polarizing, talking about the polarization that's occurring in our culture. It made me think about just that idea is God exclusive? Is he, because that kind of seems to be quintessential to polarization is that there's something that's included and somebody that's excluded. You're on the other side of the pole, you're on my side of the pole. So I'm just wondering, it's interesting to ask
Yeah,
if God is like,
that's a great inquiry. And then we talked about kind of related to that. Our first inquiry was how the absolute truth is beyond words, beyond conception, beyond the mind. So there's really nothing to say, but
I
we're gonna
jotted
keep on trying.
right. I jotted a little scribble about that, and it reminded me the words are inherently dualistic.
Yes, that's my point.
It seems like what the mystics are realizing is something of the nature of unity beyond the dualistic level of mentation,
So words are inherently dualistic, and then we use the words, our representation of the thoughts of the mind,
right?
right?
Hmm.
So our minds and our thoughts are how we navigate this world we live in. And so then if we believe and get attached and identified with certain beliefs and thoughts, then we can other someone else who's not in those, who's identified attached to another set of beliefs and thoughts that are in opposition to that, and then we have the whole polarization. Now, I just want to say before we go any further that
Hmm.
I do think that I was talking to my brother the other day, and he was like, "Yeah, man, this tribalization is such a major problem right now." And what I said to him was, but we do need tribes. We do need to feel like we belong to something. We belong to we feel like we're a part of a family or we're a part of a community or we're a part of, it doesn't have to be because there could be this spiritual sense of I identify with nothing and I identify with nobody and um
That's a great point. It's a great
yeah,
point that we need tribes as well as the ocean. They both
yeah,
exist. It's
right.
oh, I was
So it's like a both and. It's
it's a
like
both
I
and.
do need a tribe that I belong to, and these are my people,
Right.
and there's divinity in all the other tribes as well, and a sacredness.
Absolutely. The word tribe reminded me of the word tributary, which if you think of the ocean, it's built up of tributaries. These are all river systems. They have different qualities, like some are flowing through the plain, some are lazy rivers, some are spunky and cold streams coming out of the mountains. So they have qualities, and yet when they reach the ocean, they're all the same water, right? So there's some way of celebrating the unique tributary that we are and recognizing at the same moment we're already
We're
all
all
water,
water.
we're already all connected to the ocean. So yeah, that's just like a sort of a mental, a consciousness exercise. It's like transcending the opposites, transcending duality, going beyond polarization, going beyond words. and beyond being able to hold both a local reality and a non-local reality at the same moment. That we're one and we're
A
diverse.
linear reality and a nonlinear reality,
Right, right, and we're being trained to do that, and I think we're capable of
a
it. So let's
spatial
talk
reality and a
non-spatial reality,
non-spatial reality,
an invisible spiritual reality, and
and
a
a visible
expressed form.
spirituality.
Beautiful. It's beautiful how God makes those paradox distinctions. They seem separate or opposites, but they're really held within one
But
context.
I think the big question is like, you know, you have this non-dual realization, or you have this experience with God, you have this like deep level of stillness, you have this deep level of like profound silence, this profound spacious, this infinite love.
Hmm.
And you know, people have these experiences. I mean, to be, I guess, clear, many people don't have these experiences or never had these experiences, but a lot of people do have these experiences.
Right.
And then there's the question of like, but now I'm back with the world, which is really the mind. The mind creates the, because if there's no mind, there's no world, you know?
Very
So the
true.
mind creates the world. So then it's like, what is the proper relationship with this infinite expanse and this mind thing that is still doing this linear, spatial, opposites, duality, polarization? Feels like that's the question.
That's a great inquiry. I mean, I think that that represents what people call the spiritual path. You know, that there can be openings or big experiences of awareness, but then coming back to, well, where is the mind right in this moment? You know, what is present in my awareness? And learning to retrain the mind to keep heaven in one's awareness, you know, keep truth in
Mm,
one's awareness. And that takes time, but that's what
mm.
we have time for, you know, is that we get to continue to contemplate until, uh, we
To be fully in the world, but not of it and transcendent.
right. I mean, I think that's
Which
what
is
they're teaching.
Christ. That's to me, that's by definition Christ.
And
That's
also,
why if someone would say who is Christ, that's one way you could explain who Christ is.
The one who is fully in the world but not of it. It's a
The one
beautiful.
who's fully in the world, but also fully transcendent of it.
Yeah, it's true. It's
Right?
like that's the balancing of those poles. You
Right.
know, it became the whole. It's beautiful. I feel like that's what he's calling humanity
Calling
to,
us too.
so that we can also contemplate the eternal while we deal with this physical world, you know, so we can have the gifts of the eternal, which are truly peace, you know, and the ability to let go of this world and the ability to love even under harsh circumstances. Those are the gifts of spirit. And, you know, that's, I believe, our birthright, though it seems to take, you know, many years or incarnations potentially in order to realize that birthright. But it's a wonderful thing to know. It definitely alleviates a lot of the problems of this world. It's
Is
like,
reincarnation a real thing?
um, I believe, yes, generally as people understand it, and that a part of us is never truly here. You know, what we just said is that Christ is both fully not of the world and in the world. So I would say there's a part of our spirit that never fully enters. And so it never really
do you,
incarnated anywhere, never really left.
do you ever die?
I would say that part didn't die either. So in truth,
Right,
there is no death because that
right.
part is necessary to exist on any level of consciousness. I believe that part is even necessary to exist in hell. It's still a filament of that potential, that gift of I am having an experience, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting that the Eastern teachings have the idea of reincarnation and the Western don't. The Western is like, this is your shot.
Right. I
Right
actually,
here.
I think that that increases the polarization
Do it
because
well.
do it well or else. I frankly, I don't think that that's a helpful teaching because I think that makes God seem kind of unloving. That because children die when they're 10 and people mess up and go off, and are we to presume they're in hell eternally? I don't believe that that's the case. I think that that's a misnomer on a concept, which is that we are spirits now, and if one is making hellish choices, they will experience that, and nobody wants that. You know, that's true, but whether or not one is, you know, has a split moment in time to make all those decisions, I think that's a misunderstanding of the teaching. I think that we get infinite chances until we learn that God made us for heaven, and that that's really the most expansive estate, if you will. It's much more uh, playful, loving, awesome than hell is. That's just the bottom of the matter. Even the devil's like, you know what, I'll get out of here because heaven's got, infinity pools and all the happy people are there. Is my take on it. That eventually every soul will be pulled to its maximum potential, which is the kingdom of heaven.
So I see the way I kind of see it is like it's everything is like stacked on top of each other in
Mm,
the timeless now. So where reincarnation is linear, so reincarnation is like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then I die, then I do the next life, then the next life. So reincarnation is like this,
right.
and I think the reality is like this.
Hmm.
Like everything is happening in the now, and it's like infinite dimensions all happening now. So like 1914 is happening now, 1930 is happening now, like 2070 is happening now, caveman. It's all happening now, and like our attention like shifts to like we can think about the past, we can think about the future, and we're thinking about it all in the now, and then there's this movie Cloud Atlas
Hmm.
that I thought like was kind of like pointed to this, where it's like you're like all these dimensions are interconnected and they're all affecting each other infinitely. So
Mm.
like what we're doing now changes the future, but it also changes the past, if that makes sense.
That's very cool to think about. So
Just
that
like
would say, go ahead, Jacob.
everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yes.
The movie, everything
Yes.
is so you can
Yes.
tap into any of
Yes.
that.
And that's a good way of saying it. It's like everything everywhere all at once now. And
Yeah.
you can tap it. You can tap into it, but actually you are tapping into all of it. Like we're tapping into all of it right now. Like this conversation is it's affecting the whole universe. But then the whole universe is affecting this conversation, you know? So who there used to be a song, who's zooming who? Yeah.
So I would take it that we would say reincarnation does not happen then because our spirit
Because the
is
truth is non-linear.
the truth is
But
not linear,
I
right?
think it happens. So this is where Hawkins is so interesting, right? David
Hmm.
Hawkins.
Hmm.
I think people should really like study his stuff. Because he has the scale of consciousness.
Right.
So there's a dimension of consciousness or a scale of consciousness where it appears like reincarnation. But then I think as you go into the higher levels, you're in the nonlinear consciousness more and more, and doesn't look that way anymore. It's
It's really
it's kind of like if you're invested in the linear world, then you'll keep like like a gerbil on the wheel. You'll keep like
mhm.
creating some kind of a future for yourself. Because even in Buddhism, they have the the wheel of samsara, and then you eventually you get off the wheel,
Right, but
right?
that's a loving that still reflects that God is love because he's like giving you the experience that you think you want. So it's not like a mean thing. It's just that an unexplored consciousness might be asking for the field of time, you
Yeah,
know, to be
but
incarnated in, and then that's actually a loving thing to have that experience to work out one's karma if one thinks that if that's what the purpose of this universe is for. I mean, Dr. Hawkins also says that this universe is a perfect place to gain good karma and work out bad karma in the spiritual
yeah, it's
timeless
like a
universe.
school.
I mean, that's a great way to think of it. That really reinterprets the world. I love that interpretation. I'm like, dang, that's a level up from.
I think that's legit. I think it's like there's these levels of development that you move through.
Hmm.
Because you could even if you look at it from a psychological or just a biological perspective, like, you were
Hmm.
once like a little toddler and then you were like a second grader and then you were in high school and it's like these different levels of development that you keep, and the spiritual development we keep moving through.
Which is that's pretty amazing because this experience offers such a diverse, range of experience. Dr. Hawkins, I think he says it's one of the greatest, where you can have sort of hellish experience, but also the presence of Christ in this world, makes it for a big stretch, and that's why one can grow a lot or fall maybe if that's also a possibility.
Well, let's explore the other perspective. I think it's interesting. Like, imagine if I think it's good to acknowledge with humility that we can't comprehend with our minds what happens after the body dies, right? So it's kind of, it's just sort of people are just saying things. But um, imagine if it really is just this life.
Mm,
So it does bring like a kind of like this like it's like this is all you like it brings to me when I feel it that way. I don't you can think of it like, oh, it's, there's judgment, all that stuff, but I kind of think of it like this moment is so precious. Like, I
mm.
don't even know if I might not even, like look at what's happened to some of the public figures recently. Like, you don't know when is your last day, right? So it's like if that like if you don't have a future guaranteed, it just makes you kind of like feel so much love and gratitude and
Appreciate the
not take
clouds.
things for granted. Yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate every sight, every breath, every hug, every moment.
Yeah.
It really throws you into the present moment.
Mm.
And for me, in my experience, the present moment is where I've found healing. It's where I've found connection with God, miracles. Just being here, realizing that I'm breathing and in a human body form is just a miracle in the present moment. It's like I'm complete and everything is complete. And there's only love and uh, compassion and support. And it's a beautiful place to reside.
And just
You,
being totally wide open to um thy will be done. God's
And,
will
t
be done.
and totally surrendering the need to understand with the
That's
brain,
I
the
think that's
mind,
the key,
because
right?
there is no.
It's like letting go because like the more you trust in God and the more you surrender to God, then why do you need to know? Because God's the loving source of all creation. So if God is truly the loving source of all creation, it's like if somebody's like driving your car and you're like in the back seat and it's like late at night and you're like, this guy is such a great driver. I can just relax and go to sleep.
nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like
Yeah,
that kind
yeah,
of,
yeah,
but
yeah.
if it's like some drunk person, you're like, oh my God, like
Take the wheel.
yeah, take the wheel. Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, but trusting in that surrender, trusting in that surrender that God is ultimately in control.
Yeah,
It's a freedom.
it's
It's
a
realizing
freedom.
a state of freedom.
Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose, someone once said.
Right. Perfect.
That you guys, that reminds me of we're talking about like balance between poles. Like if the Western kind of theological perspective is like this is our one life, whereas the Eastern provides this sort of no, God's merciful and you get, many chances to figure this out. It's kind of like maybe the center is where the sweet spot is, where you carry some of that immediacy, but you also have that grace, so you're not like killing your family if like somebody's acting out. Because kind of from like if this is the only life, then it sort of makes sense to kill, like get rid of threats or like anybody who's opposing us, like must should be taken out. Where it could have some extremists, but then on the other side, like if you just have infinite chances, then what's the need to spiritually grow? We might as well veg out
Right.
on
Mm,
earth and use
That's what
yeah.
I'm saying.
There's
That's
an
what
so
I'm saying.
urgency. It's
right.
Yeah.
So,
time.
but it's cool to feel because life only happens in an incredible balance, right? Center. And it's actually unmistakable, or you can't put it in words. So a lot of times when people are talking about polarization, I'm like, well, if you stand right or left, you're, out of the center, which truth happens at a center. It's an incredible miracle, that brings all these faculties into, experience.
So
So
what about if sorry, Will, go ahead.
no, that's great. That's all I wanted to share with it. But
Yeah.
the West and East perspectives meeting.
So what if the West, what if it's just instead of working now for something that's on the other side, what
Mm.
if we work now for now? What if we do, what if we put ourselves in heaven now? What if we're not trying to get to the other side, to this place of heaven? And what if we have the urgency to create that now, right now, in the now? And there's a sense of urgency. There is no another life. There is no reincarnation. And also, there's not, so you're talking about the middle ground. So there's
Right,
also not something you're working towards to get to the other side of. It's just
right,
right now.
right.
So,
I follow what you're saying.
Yeah. And that lines with the dimensions stacked. So you have all the dimensions stacked, but then heaven, see the thing about heaven is heaven by definition is eternal, right? So this
Mhm.
is the thing it's interesting, like Christians have it's like, okay, well if it's eternal, then it has to be here now and always is here. It's never not here because it's eternal,
Right.
right? So heaven has to be something that is present now. Meanwhile, and timeless, ever present now in a timeless, nonlinear consciousness. And so then we're in this linear consciousness, and so our purpose is to become aware and connected to the heavenly realm, which is God's realm, which so it's coming into communion with God,
Amen.
who is
yeah,
eternal and ever present
now.
now.
Yes.
Exactly.
In all
Yes.
of us, right? In all of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't found a consciousness I haven't witnessed the Lord in yet.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't see that until the hindsight, until looking back at it, but absolutely.
The way I see it is that no man can make their own hand. I mean, no, a lizard doesn't make itself, a tree doesn't make itself, nothing can make itself. Everything is bound by the single hand movement of God in the now,
Mm.
um, which is
Yeah.
just beautiful. I mean, it's
So
art.
that's the fall, right? The whole fall is like what you said is the natural law, right? It's the way of the universe. It's
Hmm.
God's the way the way God moves.
Right.
And then it seems like the human being got like cocky and wanted to like do separate and
Right.
divide and like do it itself and actually not necessarily knowing it, but actually being in an active resistance to
Hmm.
God, kind of wanting to
Yeah.
fight God, and
Which,
and and take over. Because that's
Yeah.
really like Satan, right? Satan, the like
Right.
the story of Satan is like he's a fallen angel.
Right.
mm,
So and it's interesting, like Star Wars, like Darth Vader, he's like, I'm gonna go against the Force,
Right. I
the
kind
dark
of
side.
I sort of the way I see it at this point is that somehow that was allowed by God to
Well,
make
sure,
make this really intense scenario,
to make it
for
really
so
interesting.
to make it really interesting in the sense that it's a maximum challenge. And Hawkins is really interesting because he says the essence of that blackness is he calls it the narcissistic core of the ego. So I almost think of it as just sort of this like pull towards selfishness or anti-godness or anti-truth, but it's not like it's anybody's fault. It just sort of exists in certain dimensions, of which this one it's strong. It's real, it's real. It's intense. Most people gravitate somewhat towards it on some level or have, that's why it feels so intense here, I think. And that's the pull of the linear. But it's just, to me, that's such a helpful reinterpretation is that it's not a force of its own making. It's not something outside of ourself. It's actually set up by the infinite to allow even
Yeah.
further infinity and
It
further
has to be because
divinity. Yeah,
I
because
was
that's
I was corresponding with someone the other day, and I was having on this exact topic. I said,
mm,
God by definition is the all-powerful creator.
omniscient,
So
omnipresent.
if God's the all-powerful creator, then what's there to worry about? Because
Well,
God's the more powerful force, and
right,
God's the one that created. There's God created everything, and God created the free will to
right.
do all the
To
other
make
things
a
that are
shadow.
happening. Yeah.
That's how it has to be interpreted because uh yeah, it's just like evil is like a turn within the circle of God's love.
Hmm.
And that ultimately whatever it may seem to offer, whatever it is a limitation to the fullness of what God offers. Because he gives all to his son. He gives us everything. There's no part of the kingdom which the light doesn't touch, but evil or shadow represents, kind of a selfhood, if you will, that I believe, yeah, is a limitation, which is why I think it's undesirable on any level. It's worth rooting up. It's just seen as, yeah, just not, I don't, not the fullness of what God is. Um, It's a powerful thing to reflect on though, because people make the power of evil really, really strong in this world. And I was thinking about that coming up to this conversation because Jesus has certain quotes like "turn the other cheek" and "resist not evil." And I think you kind of were mentioning those, Brian, in terms of just how we approach this, because in a polarized time, people are going out trying to fight evil. Is that the right approach, or is there a different approach of not loving it, but or not tolerating or not accepting it,
Mhm.
but also extending love to it in a way that we might return it to the full embrace? Anyhow, it's deep to go
Yes,
into
to
that.
all that. But
Cool.
people get very mad when I talk about this. They get
Well,
very triggered.
in order for this dualistic world to be real, evil must be very real and have a very, the war, the conflict must be real because it's in the transcending of that conflict that duality is transcended. In peace and love and God, there's only love and God. There's no other, there's no devil, there's no shadow, there's no fear, there's no death. That's the truth of the vertical. And in order to maintain the horizontal, evil must be very real. Death, the other, something other than God must be made very real. And so to me, I think that that's actually our ignorance because I haven't found something that could make itself or be outside of God. Until you show me that, then maybe we'd have some strange force that is more powerful than God.
That's exactly, yeah. It would have to be something that's more powerful than God,
Yeah, but it's
which means then God wouldn't be God.
right.
So
Right.
simple,
Right.
see?
Exactly. Yeah. So he's not more powerful than God. Like,
Yeah,
and Christ came to say, look,
yeah.
uh, the world can also always kill you. That's its one threat against you. It's like, look, you got this one little life here. You should get all the cheese and wine you can possibly, and if you don't follow our way, we'll take away your little mouthpiece. And there, it's always a threat on your bodily life.
Mm.
And we've seen that recently in world events. That was the crucifixion of Christ. They were like, we don't like this guy or what he's saying, or whatever it was, wanted to hang him up. And
And
yeah, it's just go
what's
ahead.
what's very interesting about that is over 2000 years later now, I just heard the stats on Christians. There's over 2 billion Christians on
In
the
the earth.
earth.
Hmm.
And Rome was the empire, back then. Rome has fallen. All these other empires have come and went. But Christ, the man, the body, passed over 2000 years ago. But Christ, the spirit, which came into the
The
man,
the
which
true body of Christ.
the true body of Christ, now it's coming to light. I think that transmission, that spirit of Christ is stirring around this planet within the
I
hearts
mean,
and
for
the
sure. I mean, there's no denying right now that something massive is happening. Like, you
massive
know,
for me, and I'm seeing it elsewhere
yeah,
too.
yeah. It's you can look at different public figures. I can see people that I'm connected to on social media, people you'd never expect. All of us, all of so many of our friends we're connected to. I mean, that's the interesting thing is like, yeah, it's such a time of great polarization and such a time of darkness, but it's such an amazing time. It's like this was in the point I was going to make is like the adversarial force. The way I see it is why does God allow this adversarial force? Because it makes your hunger, your devotion, your one-pointed focus on God stronger and stronger and stronger until
Absolutely.
you're just there 100%.
So it's a gift. It's
Yeah.
actually a blessing.
And it's actually a blessing that when you think about it, it's actually a blessing that the distinctions are so like if it's kind of everything's kind of muddled in the middle, it'd be like, oh, it's kind of confusing. But it's almost like there's no
Yeah,
it's almost like there's two options now. It's like this like degenerate, dark, shadow say whatever. And then there's like this light and it's like and it's almost like imagine if you're like you have like 1 foot, you're like standing on a cliff and all of a sudden, like the ground beneath you starts going like this, and you're like, I gotta choose one of these options, man. There's no middle ground
it's,
anymore.
it's like banging kitchen pots together over here, and like angelic beings
So it,
singing
it's
over
it's kind
here.
of like it's kind of a good thing in that it's just pretty simple now. It's getting more and more simple and clear to discern, which way
Yeah.
to go. It's like, you know, so I mean, there's a lot of suffering for sure. There's a lot of, horrible things happening. But I think there's a lot of people like recognizing and getting more clear and giving their full energy and attention to where they know they need to go now because of it.
That's a great way to interpret the challenge.
Mhm.
It's sort of like, I think I agree. Where do you stand? It's like, what do you really value? That's the opportunity of crisis, is kind of like, where is our foundation? And what Jesus said, don't build your house on the sand, build your house on the rock of eternity, because a mortal foundation, Maya was never a great, foundation. Like, something temporary cannot provide that safety that the soul seeks, that safety of peace and eternity, which is God. So yeah, God is big enough for all of us. So is Christ, in my opinion. I see Christ as transcending Christianity, or even the word Christ. And we kind of talked about that before, which is why
Christ,
words are
Christ,
confusing.
Christ transcends
Transcends
Christ.
himself. Yeah, totally.
Maybe that should be the title of the episode.
Oh gosh.
Christ
I mean,
transcends Christ.
and then I would argue that God transcends all of them, because the Father made the Son, and Christ is that Son. Christ is the vehicle of awareness, and the Alpha Omega. Um, and I think that we can all unite under that, and it's important for our culture to have one thing we can unite on. And it's important that we understand that God is that energy that embraces all things. Even the darkness is somehow held by God, I believe. So it's a unifying point, and that's my prayer for the
I think
nations.
the thing to recognize about the darkness is it's by definition it's temporary, it's temporal,
Mhm.
Mm.
right? Only God is eternal. So there's really nothing to worry about.
I just remembered a Hawkins quote that he said he like approached like a almost eternal hell for a second. Like, I wonder if there's some realms of hell and heaven that are non-temporal. Um, but
Some realms in where?
both hell and heaven that are non-temporal, like as if they just, they're outside of experience.
So
It's
yeah,
almost like
so
that.
this is a so yeah, so let's talk about hell. So I I think we all agree hell's a real experience. It's
Hmm.
real,
Hmm.
but I don't see how it could possibly be eternal. It doesn't make any sense at all. I think it has to be temporary.
I think Dr. Hawkins was clarifying that it's eternal only in its like most sort of astral, or almost its higher dimensional forms, outside of time, that
May-
that has a place that it's kind of.
Maybe there's an experience that is always going to be suffering in hell. There's
Yeah,
always going to be, and there
right,
has to be that to be heaven.
right,
So
right.
there's always going to be people suffering, or in this universe, the vastness, if it's not people, there's going to be something suffering, and there's going to be something thriving and loving and light.
Yes. Yes.
And we don't always, I've been to hell. I didn't, I chose to come out. I didn't stay there. So I think you stay there as long as you need to, or as long as you want to. And then when you become aware that you're choosing and creating hell for yourself, and that it's available to choose something else, then you can shift out of hell and
Yes.
then go and experience heaven. And you can experience, it's funny, I did a diagram this morning about the spectrum of experience. And you have the worst hell you can imagine here and the best heaven you can imagine here. And there's everything that you could ever imagine in between. And you can experience it all.
It's worth noting. I think that what constitutes the worst hell, Hawkins said, y'all tell me if you agree with this, is that the beings that like totally deny God, that's like the worst sort of part in hell. It's like they have an existence, but they deny, I guess, their creator or something, which would be that, most sort of selfish notion, like, I exist, but I'll never say that I have a creator. It's
And maybe
funny.
they're the ones holding hell down.
Right,
Man.
right, exactly. Yeah, like, because that provides the opposite, that creates all this experience where we can kind of individuate with that pull. But this world, it's like when people are upset, it's just like you want to give them a little bit more heaven. It's like you want to be like, hey, there's a eternal light in you. Hey, there's a just peace and joy, and safety and everything good will be returned. And, you know, so it's helpful to remember that here, because it's like when the world gets dark, that's what's needed to balance it. It's like on your scale, be like, whoop, let's go a little bit more towards the joy. And how do you do that, Jacob, when it's kind of dark? Or, you know, what are the practices that you value in terms of moving into the light?
Um, well, I several things, many things. I take very good care of myself first and foremost, and I have my practices. I have my daily practices. Um, and really, it's just awareness. I think knowing where I'm at
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm choosing, what I'm saying. The other day, I had an experience in my truck. I was driving down the road and somebody was acting silly in front of me, and I was like, you moron, like, you stupid. And then I was like, it came to me like, no, why would you say that? Like, and then it came to me like, how do I love everyone? How do I have love for everyone? And then I passed this person and I looked over and I said, I love you. And I realized that it's a choice. And I chose that day to say I love you to everybody I passed, and realized that that was a practice in becoming the next version of myself. And so I think that's it. Practice. So awareness, you realize what you're doing that's keeping you somewhere. And I think mentors and help and who you're surrounded by, pay attention to their fruits, pay attention to your own fruits, and make the proper adjustments and corrections. Like I came into the divinity, put me in to cross paths with Brian, and when I was struggling in hell, the worst hell that I could imagine that I've ever experienced here. And slowly I began to realize that I can start doing these things, and just, the energy and the frequency that somebody like Brian or like us carries now. I think people will naturally gravitate to a high to a brighter side of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what you're saying, what you're thinking, what you're doing, what you're eating, taking care of your body, exercising and stretching, and the activities that you're involved in. I think it's just practice. It's awareness and practice. And that's
Amen.
what's worked for me. And now I have this amazing experience that I could never have imagined, and still can't even imagine. Like I look up at the clouds and it's like, this is almost unbelievable. Like I'm here looking at these clouds and breathing, and I take a deep breath in and just like dissipate, almost expand into the atmosphere around me. And it's I just I keep wanting to stay in the place of not knowing and being open, because when you don't know something, you don't have a specific idea about something, then I can be open to whatever the truth is. And the truth keeps revealing itself to me in different ways over and over and over. And it's like, I imagine it's infinite, and it will always reveal new levels and new layers as I continue noticing uh, what's inside of me and how it can shift, and seeing other examples and practice.
You really just nailed what I think is what people call the spiritual path, is just like noticing and making a choice, and then allowing God to fulfill that, and then noticing again.
And then he said making adjustments and corrections from there. So that's the part I want to touch on. So first off, just to define hell, to me, what I define hell is separation from God,
Hmm.
right? So there's like subtle forms of hell, and then there's more extreme forms of hell, and then there's like the ultimate sense of
Mm.
And
separation.
real quick, interestingly enough, when I was in this place, I couldn't even say the word God.
Exactly.
I was
Wow.
atheist at this
Exactly.
point.
Wow.
Exactly. So
And
there's like
now,
there's like this like um it's like a hatred toward God, like this like
hmm
hatred toward Christ, hatred
hmm
toward, but it's not like someone wouldn't say it some people will, but most people wouldn't say it like verbally, but there's this unconscious thing you'll just notice. It's just like you
Mm-hmm.
can feel them physically like tighten, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, so obviously you don't know God then, or else you wouldn't do that, right? Because like God
hmm
is this immense loving um, source at the heart of all creation.
Mm, mm.
And so like, all we have to do is first, I mean, I'm not saying it's simple, but all we have to do is just like recognize and realize who and where God is. I think that's like the first thing. And then it's like then yeah, like Jacob was saying, I've been thinking about this word repentance, metanoia.
Metanoia.
So metanoia is like which comes from the word repentance is like change of mind and heart,
Mm.
essentially, right? So this is like a question I've been like, to be honest, to get like frustrated around it and talking to Jacob about it is like, why don't people change? Like, why don't they make the proper adjustments and corrections? I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but like, why not try? Why not try to like make changes? Why not try to change your mind, change your heart, change your body to be able to receive God, more fully? So
It's
that's
simple.
my question to you guys. And that
It's
ties in
simple.
that sorry, that ties into the strategy to get to heaven, that question.
It's simple, but not easy. And when, for me, the way I see it, I had to suffer until I was ready. Um, my hand just came up. I don't know.
I don't know.
That's funny. You
We'll
hold your hand up.
disregard that.
Yeah.
Lower hand. There we go.
Um, yeah, so I was on my own path of awakening to this knowing, to coming back into union with God. And I think until somebody realizes, well, I can only speak for my experience, and I got to the point where there was nothing left in me. I was ready to surrender. I was ready to die in this body as Jacob. I was so sick and so full of misery and suffering that I would wake up every morning and I was so sick and I would just cry and sob and be like, I'm just done. I'm over it. I can't wake up again. And I wasn't going to kill myself. It wasn't anything like that. It was just like I was so given out. I was just so tired of suffering. And so from that place, for me, there was only one way because I wasn't, like I said, going to kill myself. It was never a thought of that. Um, so there was only one other option, and it was to get out of where I was. And I think it probably could have happened much sooner. I maybe didn't have to suffer so long, but however it worked out, you have to have the right tools in front of you, and you have to know that those tools are tools there to be used and gifts, and in my case, it was I had started getting a pull or a knock or a hand. It's like God reached down a hand and said, "Come on, you've suffered long enough. It's time to come out and learn what all this suffering was about." And then Brian shows up. And, if that had have happened earlier, maybe I wouldn't have had to suffer so long. But I think it's, a combination of being to the point where it's time. It's time to come on out and having the right person or the right scriptures or the right books or the right tools to help you get out.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how there's so it's common that there's an experience that people kind of descend to depths of hell before they reach
The
up
the
to,
rock bottom.
yeah, the rock bottom. Or I mean, Jung has a quote about it. He says like the soul can only extend as high up as it's willing to go down. So maybe it's kind of a quality of exploring that is happening for like a soul level experience. But as far as your question, Brian, I think there's two things going on. I believe that could prevent somebody from wanting to heal or more like having the willingness to heal. Um, and it has to do with fear or guilt or just unconscious emotions that are uncomfortable to feel. And so the ego resists a part of our personality, a part of our identity will resist looking at
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
And surprisingly so. You might be surprised how
Yeah,
resistant
yeah.
this thing is to the truth. Kind of like we were mentioning, it's a
Yeah.
worthy foe. It's real. It's a very real force that I believe can really only be overcome with petitioning higher power help. Like
Yeah.
the devil energy is typically stronger than the human energy in this domain. Thankfully
Yeah.
the human has access to
That's why, like
God.
In Jacob's story, he said the hand came down and he held on to it and grabbed it.
Right. So it kind of, I guess, until the soul's ready for that, there's a deep process that's happening here. So it seems to me a lot of people hear the word and there's something that within them. This happened to me when I first heard the word that, God is alive and God is in all of us, is that a part of me was like, I'm not worthy of that. And that's the inner belief that we're not worthy of heaven, we're not worthy of being saved, we're, not worthy of being uh, vessels of Christ or whatever it is. I mean, that has to do with, I think, the belief in separation.
Well, I was taught
Um,
that in church and religion. I think that's taught in many
I think it's
cases.
taught, but it also resonated with deep inner
Hmm.
beliefs that I had as a soul or whatever I am as a field of awareness. I played out some pretty heavy dreams of separation.
Hmm.
So those things. But then, Brian, the other thing I would add to your question is a lot of times it's seeing. For me, it's like when I notice that whatever evil is not desirable to me, is not the most beautiful thing, then that also catalyzed a lot of growth. And sometimes that happens by taking on an incarnation where you're the bad one for a little while, and you fall into a pit or you're taking on that and you be like, wow, this is not beautiful. This is not, what God could be inside of me. And so it's by looking at that evil. And then the course really helped me clarify that there's really only God or something else. And so that makes it stronger to just choose only the light when you see that, it's just truth or this
Or
other
falsehood.
smorgasbord or falsehood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And who would really want falsehood in the end,
Right.
when
Right.
truth of the divine universe is being offered to you?
I
I have
think
to
that's a
remind
great way to
myself
look
of
at
that.
it. That's a great way to
Yeah.
look at it is you're
Yeah.
basically just if you just follow the truth, right? And
Mhm.
Jesus said that repeatedly, like truth will set you free,
Right.
talked about the truth. He said he was the truth, right?
Hmm.
So it's like I think that's if you're kind of lost, if you just start to follow whatever's true, like
Hmm.
even like literally like, oh, the sun is actually outside right now. Like
Hmm.
literally like, like what people would call mindfulness, just starting with like, and then you'll go into deeper truths and deeper truths and deeper truths.
And ultimately, the truth that we're finding out is that God's presence is alive inside of myself. I
Yeah.
am that one. I'm worthy of his love. I'm worthy of giving his love,
Yeah.
receiving it, transforming this world into heaven. That's the truth about us. We didn't make ourselves.
Yeah.
So, and that's a,
It's interesting. It's interesting that you want to explore that a little bit, and then I want to get something else you said too. But it's interesting you talked about how you didn't feel worthy, or maybe you still don't feel worthy. But because that's like I noticed like getting more into Christian world, it's like that's like they're very into being sinners, right?
Mhm.
Christians are very into being sinners,
Right.
and so but they are worthy. So it's like there's like this kind of identification with being a sinner, which I don't really get into that, but it's interesting that that could be helpful for people that feel like they've not worthy, right?
Well,
It's
it
okay.
perpetuates that type of behavior.
But it's like I'm a sinner. So it's like I think the idea is like if you can acknowledge that I don't like identifying I'm a sinner, but I
Hmm.
certainly have sinned for sure,
Hmm.
right? So I have sinned, that's for sure. And then I am worthy of full redemption, to use our word we use at the retreat, right? I'm worthy
Right.
of redemption and sanctification.
Right.
It seems like that's the Christian path, right? It's like
Mhm.
because like this beautiful thing about the Christian path that you and I talked about, Will, that is I think is distinct. Like there's no other path that gives the same value to forget. Like forgiveness is really the Christian. That's like the what would you call it? The like the what's the thing that it's like the transformative agent
The magic
that
wand.
yeah, it's the magic wand.
Mm,
Forgiveness is the magic wand. That's a good way of putting
right.
it,
It's
you
the
know.
contemplation. It's the
Although I
meta. It's
remember
the
talking about
attitude.
I remember talking about Christianity to someone who's like more Christian. I was like, don't say the word magic. It's not they don't use that
Yeah,
word.
they don't like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an incredible attitude. I mean, Joshua says that that's God's attitude towards us, is that he looks upon all these mistakes and he's immediately forgiven them. He doesn't
Yes.
want us to be crippled by the past and all these
Yeah.
errors,
Yeah.
so to speak. So you're right. I mean, and Jesus said to do it 77 times, like
77 times
continuously.
7.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
really want to get the message, it's pretty incredible charge, if you
Yeah.
will. In terms of like, yeah, it's like somebody's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm forgiving all day." It's like every
Well, not
even
only did he say it, but he lived it his whole life.
right.
He was forgiving of everyone.
And to me, I mean, to put that in the context of my worthiness, to me, my unworthiness, in my understanding now, came from my fixed identity with my body mind, with my ego, not as God had created me. So it
Hmm.
it was this non-alignment.
Hmm.
I wasn't worthy because I was holding myself in a false image.
Hmm.
Essentially, I mean, it was not aligned. So forgiveness allows us to magic wand away that previous identity we were holding and
Exactly.
allow God to restore his idea
And
when he
then it
created us.
allows the metanoia, the change of
Repentance.
the
Yeah,
arouse the repentance, the change of the
right.
mind and heart.
Right. And the waters of life to flow within your holy soul again and
It
the
allows
renewing.
the opportunity to be born again,
Indeed.
a new life, a new
Hmm.
creation.
Hmm. Though that brings to mind, Christians are kind of exclusive in their path. You got to baptize and then you got to go to church and follow the word and follow Jesus and not sin. And so there is some sort of, when you repent, there's sort of a path to walk, so to speak, in terms of
Yes.
like not go forth and sin no more.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there is something about what is sin and how can you live a life of less sin? And Hawkins, to me, really clarifies that sin is like kind of behaviors that stem from an attitude of I'm separate from God, so therefore
Yep.
I'm not enough.
Yep.
So it goes through kind of like pride, holding ourselves,
Yep.
and anger, which is an attitude that I don't have power from God, and all the way down. So it's he really makes it helpful in terms of being able to say I can chip away at sin by surrendering my thoughts, surrendering my actions and attitudes to God, and then the more we do that, the more space we're giving God to really give us that reborn fullness. But that is I would say God's conditional in that aspect that we have to kind of make enough space for Him to redeem us, and that's up to us whether we're filling our minds with fear or meeting the present moment with an attitude of openness. God, what would you have for me in this moment? What
That's a really interesting inquiry, like because there's like this whole debate in the Christian world of like faith or works,
hmm
right?
It's a little bit
And
of both, like everything. Oh, come on, baby.
I think so. I think it's both and, right?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So, but there is something where I understand what I don't like is when there's this idea of like, oh, just say the words like Jesus Christ is my savior, then act like an asshole and treat people like shit, and like I don't like that, right? But then there's like there is something where it's like if you truly gave your life over to Christ and to God,
Hmm.
then God would effortlessly work through you to make the changes and adjustments without you having to, without the ego having to try to do it. So in that sense, that's real.
Right.
But there has to be the changes. You can't be in a state of resistance to the changes.
Right. I think we have to do works like or the course says something like it's our job to essentially just leave our altar clean and open. So it's like it's my choice whether or not I overeat, which is a classic sin of gluttony or whatever.
Yeah.
It's my choice whether or not
A
I
lot of people doing that sit in America these days.
yeah, it's tough. We have a whole history of being really hungry and now we have the world's best diners. But
You don't hear
ultimately,
many pastors talking about that one anymore.
well, yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, it's funny though. What I found ultimately is that feeling light feels better than feeling stuffed. Everybody knows that. You can never fill yourself up with too much food. It's just I think it's important to talk about this stuff and look at it clearly because everything that sin offers us is a lesser pleasure than our ultimate
That's that's
state.
that's a
And so,
powerful truth.
yeah, and it's important to be honest about it, the way we're tempted, the way we fall short, and then the way we all give it up. We're all,
Do not
giving it all.
worship false idols
It's really
like
important.
like like McDonald's cheeseburgers. Mhm.
Right. Or yeah, anything in the world of form.
Right.
Even Jesus said, "Why do you call me good? No one's good but the Father Himself, the Spirit inside of me that brings me to life, that animates me." It's like don't mistaken the messenger with the message. Don't overlook like the spirit with the form that it's being presented in. Um, that's like the roots of idolatry in a lot of ways, and it's what the world thrives on. Is that that we have a source that's physical? No, our source is non-physical. uh yeah, anyhow, we could go off on that, but that's, um
I wanted to touch on something else you said that I think is really really potent. So yeah, you make a great point. Like when you make that sense of like I'm going to repent, metanoia, I'm going to have a change of heart, I'm going to have a change of mind, I'm going to give my life to God, give my life to Christ. Um, yeah, the idea could be like, oh, things are going to be so happy now. But you're right. It's usually first. It's like you never see that movie Shawshank Redemption,
mhm.
and he's planning his escape from prison, and he has to crawl through that tunnel of like piss and shit for like several hundred yards. And then he gets out the other side and he's like, and he's free, you know? I think it's like that. It's like you have to go through the tunnel first. But as long as you know that you're going to get to that place of infinite freedom where you're going to be one with God, it's okay because you know what this is all about,
That's
right?
absolutely right, but that it's important to acknowledge that that tunnel is challenging sometimes, even for great souls. Like
And
I think
and that's
Hawkins said.
probably I just want to say that's probably where the word faith comes in, right? Because you could be in the middle of that tunnel and be like, "Am I ever going to get to this other side that
Right,
I heard
right,
about?"
right, right. That's so true. I mean, Hawkins had a great quote that really helps me. He says, "When you make a dedication to the love of God, it tends to bring up everything within your consciousness that is
Yeah,
not dedicated to that." And
yeah,
that's challenging. That requires forgiveness because you're like, "Oh, I'm such a good person. I'm walking the Christian path now." And then these maybe like non-linear, great pains reoccur, and
yeah,
they're coming as blessings. The course says, "Would you trust that God only brings blessings to you. The Holy Spirit is only bringing you things to that you ultimately want to clear out because you're making space for a higher dimensional experience. You're making the dedication to heaven. So you're going to get rid of this, which is, it's pretty amazing. He handles it though. He handles the challenges. He sets them up. He walks us through them. But you know, yeah, it's not always an easy path. A lot of Christians know that and say that, or just people that are walking with God. I'm sure people say that in Eastern traditions too. I just am, raised in America in a Christian tradition.
I'm having a question right now. Um, I want to first read something about metanoia, um, which is turning toward God, truth, a reorientation of the soul away from illusions, sin, or ego, and toward divine love and alignment.
beautiful. Who wrote
Transformation.
that? Sorry, I thought you were done.
No, this is the definite. So I was looking up metanoia earlier today,
That's
funny enough. And this is ChatGPT's help.
Thank you,
Trans
chat.
yeah, transformation of consciousness, not just changing thoughts, but allowing your whole perception of life to be renewed. Living differently. True metanoia shows up in action, embodying compassion, love, and a higher way of living. Many mystics describe it as a rebirth of the inner self, where the old ways of seeing and being fall away and something new, freer, and more connected emerges. And I'm thinking about this, and this is my experience right now. And then I'm also thinking about, I was saved as a young man in church and baptized like twice or many times maybe. And then I've often thought and said, that didn't work. I didn't change anything in my life then. And then continued making choices that led me into this suffering that I experienced. But right now I'm thinking, was that the moment when Christ did come into me, and then I had to crawl through the shit and the piss to get here?
Well,
So was Christ
did you
always
feel it like sincere in your heart?
no?
Yeah, so I would say
Uh,
no then.
yeah. But now, but before, when I didn't even realize, that it was God and Christ, um, now I truly am a new creature. I
Yep.
truly am changed, and now I realize that it is God
Yep.
and it is Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, there was this uh Charlie Kirk's memorial. There was a, I guess it was his pastor. I can't remember if it was his pastor. I think it was his pastor, or it was a pastor near the very beginning. And he goes to the people. Annie and I were watching it, and he goes to the people. He goes, so I'm paraphrasing, but it basically goes like, if you're already saved, stay seated.
Mm.
If you're ready to be saved, stand up right now. And the people are standing up. And I go, well, he didn't give a third option. He's like, what if you're not saved? You don't want to be saved. There was no option for that. It was just like either you're saved or you're saved right now.
Right.
But like
Right.
it should be your choice if you want to be
Yeah.
saved or not.
Or you stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Very
man, I,
slick move.
Yeah.
I can see how, in consciousness, it's powerful to kind of set a context to allow a soul to open to Jesus. Like it was kind of like what you were referring to, Jacob. Like I did that when I was young. I did that a lot when I was young too, and I think it is interesting how culture plays into that, but it really doesn't hit until um,
You're ready.
you're ready. Though, for me, when I had my first really powerful experience of metanoia or repentance, it it wasn't quite a conscious choice. It kind of had that same, like, an old self died and a new self emerged. And I think that that's God's will for us, is constantly, I was shocked, honestly, when it happened, because I'd been living in this identity of this other self, but I think that rebirth experience happens quite a few times along the way, until Hawkins says you kind of have a most powerful true rebirth of spirit, in which you could never kind of be in the illusion of separation, or
You're
No, turn.
disappearing more and more as you talk to us.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just going out.
you're turning into the pure light of
There
God.
we go. Okay, I'm going back to Nickel Gorge. Y'all can see that's where I'll be.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Anyhow, it's great to reflect on that stuff, and thanks be for God's presence, that He brings peace to
And
souls here.
grace, right? The grace of God.
Yeah.
It's
Very
like
much.
all we have to, like, the grace is always available. All we have to do is just
It's always
be
there.
available to the grace.
And it's so much stronger than whatever. It's incredible how angsty we can feel in this world, but that's always relative. The love is just so much more immense. We're just, having a temporary experience of being cut off to us. But um, yeah, the love it makes it all worth it, to me, or at least that came to me today as like a balming thought, while I storm around the world and take care of my business. Anyhow, love chatting with y'all. It's a really
Love chatting with you all. Maybe we'll wrap this podcast up here. Love you guys.
Yeah, I
Appreciate
love
you.
you
Thanks for
guys
being
very
here.
much. Yeah, thank you both.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah, peace, guys. And